All right. So today we're going to talk about the code of ethics and how you can apply it to your business. So with that being said, real estate agents are often thought of as what? Yep, I'm not even going to say it. Only 2% of individuals surveyed in a 2018 Gallup poll. I was trying to see if there was something a little more recent, couldn't find anything more recent, but only 2% rated that their trust in real estate agents was very high when it came to honesty and ethics. Isn't that depressing, guys? I hate the fact that only 2% actually said, yeah, my realtor was very honest, very ethical. And we get kind of thrown into that, oh, they're just a salesperson or they're a used car salesperson, right? So we don't ever want that to be the persona that people think of when it comes to realtors, right? So in order to do that, you need to understand the code of ethics. The code of ethics is something that it was created. I'm not going to go into the whole history. We do that in the class itself, but it was created as a standard of professionalism. And all National Association of Realtor members are bound by this code of ethics. It was adopted in 1913, and there are 17 articles. Hi there, who just jumped in. Let's see. Whoever it was, Natalie. Yay. Hi, Natalie. So we were just talking about the fact that the code of ethics is something that you need to know inside and out. You need to understand what the purpose is so that you are not bunched in, as that 2018 Gallup poll said, with car salesmen and sharks and just another salesperson. They just want my money. We don't want that. So with that, we're going to talk very briefly about what it stands for, what it means. And then if you guys are interested in knowing more and keeping it real and fun, I'll have that virtual 3-hour CE coming up. With that, let's see, who was that? Oh, hello, everyone. Hi, Natalie. So the National Association of Realtors, since it seems like everybody here is part of a board of realtors, you need to understand that many professional fields do have code of ethics, but real estate is one of the only industries where the organization creating the code not only has this code, but also has procedures and power in order to enforce that. So that's a big, big deal. Knowing that we are one of the few organizations that has this, hi, Shauna, is really important and really interesting to me because we actually have to follow it. We sign up with NAR, we sign up with the National Organization of Realtors, and we say we are going to be bound by this code. So for some reason, my PowerPoint's being really funny. Here we go. So the code of ethics is not just a set of guidelines. It's actually a binding agreement between you and NAR. And it states that you must adhere to these rules or these ethics in order to maintain your membership with the National Association of Realtors. So if you are a realtor, not a real estate agent, you are bound. If you are a real estate agent, don't say, okay, I'm out of here, because you should still follow this. It's going to increase your business. It's going to increase your professionalism. But the NAR, National Association of Realtors, actually requires that you abide by these code of ethics. This includes all real estate agents, brokers, appraisers, property managers, any professional who is a member of the Association of Realtors. However, note, not everybody is a member of NAR. But like I said a moment ago, even though you're not a member of NAR, you should know this code of ethics and apply it to your business. And guys, if you're not a member of NAR, a national member of Association of Realtors, I would encourage you to do it because there's so many benefits. I always like to give a commercial to that because you have benefits when it comes to education, savings, all sorts of benefits. But the duties of the Code of Ethics is broken up into 3 parts. You have duties to clients and customers. Remember, as a customer, you are only doing ministerial duties, but you still have some ethical duties to a customer as well as to the client. Additionally, you have duties to the public and you have duties to other professionals in the business, realtors, appraisers, etc. Now, like I said, I like to give a commercial to NAR. You have access to education and training, you have networking opportunities, and you have advocacy on behalf of the industry to make changes. Because how often do we all state, I just don't like how things are going, but we do nothing about it? So this gives us the ability to also do something about something we're not happy about. Hi, Jacqueline. So make sure that you're aware of that. So the Code of Ethics and non-realtors sets a, even for realtors and non-realtors, sorry, that should not have said non-realtors, but Code of Ethics sets a benchmark. It sets a code of conduct. It sets a code of professionalism. So the reason I put non-realtors, but I didn't explain myself very well on this slide, is that whether you're a realtor or not, you should follow this and use that as a benchmark, especially when dealing with other agents. So one of the things that I stated at the beginning was that the Code of Ethics in real estate actually has the ability to be enforced and regulated. But keep in mind, if somebody violates the Code of Ethics and you find out they're not a member of NAR, you don't have that ability. So that is why I like to let people know about the Code of Ethics, about them understanding that even if they're not a member of a board of realtors, they should look at this as part of their business, as it will increase their business. So understand that Code of Ethics has the ability to give you sanctions that can include a fine up to $15,000. Unless you have pocket change of $15,000, be cautious. And I'm going to be telling you a couple of the violations, common violations that you might not even be aware are violations. You can also be suspended from your board or association. You can be given a letter of reprimand, and they can make you take education courses. For those of you, I know several of you are brokers. If an agent in your office violates the Code of Ethics, you as a broker may be required to go take that course, what every broker should know, or one of those, so just be aware that those are items that you are responsible for your broker, as a broker for your agents. And it's all done through, the sanctions are all administered through the Code of Ethics and Arbitration Manual that NAR has. If you're ever interested in really boring reading, that's one to read, but it gives you all the sanctions that are available to an agent. Now, the Code of Ethics intentions was to protect clients who rely on the expertise and guidance of their agent or broker when buying, selling, leasing property management, etc. It does require you to work in your client's best interest, to provide accurate and truthful information, maintain confidentiality, protect customers who are not represented. That would be your customer, right? Not your client, but you still have to have a level of ethics. And also, you must treat customers fairly and honestly, as well as provide accurate information about the process, about the property, about the transaction process. So that, in a nutshell, is the intention of the Code of Ethics. A lot of times people think, well, it's a customer, I don't have to do anything. No, you still have to protect it. And it all boils down to the preamble. There's a preamble to the Code of Ethics, which is all based on the Golden Rule. Who knows what the Golden Rule is? Who can tell me? Oh, you crickets out there. Come on, somebody unmute and tell me what the Golden Rule is. If you don't know, I'm going to be really sad.
To treat others like you would like to be treated.
Exactly. Treat others how you want to be treated. That is the bottom line of what the preamble is. Treat others like you want to be treated. That's really what we should all be living by, right? Additionally, like I told you before, the three major sections of the COE of the Code of Ethics is duties to clients and customers, duties to the public, and duties to realtors. The common violations are not acting in the best interest of clients, revealing private or confidential information. Very quickly, I'll tell you one, or put it in chat or unmute yourself. What is one that you can think of off the top of your head that would be not acting in the best interest of your client? Anyone? Well, because we have a lot to cover, I'll go ahead and say it since nobody seems to be jumping up to talk today. But basically, it would be, for example, when you say, if you go ahead and if I have to show your property, I'm going to reduce the commission. That would be one. To me, that is very grayish area, because how I can't think of any way that that would be in the best interest of your client, right? So that would be one that you might want to think over if you are one of those people, one of those listing agents that writes that in. Another one, revealing private or confidential information. How many of you guys get that call? Are there any offers on your property? And you say, oh yeah, there's two, or no, there's no offers. You just revealed private or confidential information, unless you have written authority to reveal that and it's in your client's best interest. That is probably one of the most common ones I see. Or how about advertising a listed property without disclosing that you're a realtor? And I don't mean just your own property. I mean going on Facebook, on social media, and saying, coming soon, look at this great 3-2 in Lawrenceville. But you're not putting an address. You're not putting the information of the listing. You're just kind of making it appear that it's somebody's house. That, again, would be a violation. How about exaggerating the qualities or features of a property? Believe it or not, I can give you case studies where people have gotten sanctioned for saying beautiful, huge living room. Anybody ever use that word, beautiful or huge? Those are opinions, guys, and they're not factual necessarily, because who determines what's beautiful? Who determines what's huge? So be careful when you're using adjectives like that. That could be considering exaggerating qualities. Or how about, chef's kitchen? That's another one. Be very cautious in how you're doing things. How about failing to disclose a personal relationship with a purchaser to a home seller and client? You're helping your best friend. Do you have to disclose that? In theory, you do. And it's not a problem until it's a problem. So again, material disclosure on 10C on the purchase and sale agreement, you want to disclose the relationship with the purchaser to the home seller. How about collecting extra commission from a client? Hey, if we can close by, within 15 days, I'll give you an extra $100 or $1,000 or whatever. If you're collecting it, but you are not disclosing it, there's a lot more to that one. But if you're not disclosing it, if you're not collecting it on the HUD, if you're doing something on the side, obviously that's going to be not only an ethical violation, but could become a law violation. But just if you also state, you're going to have to pay me this if you want me to sell, if we want to close in 30 days, or if you use a have to type of situation. Of course, posting discriminatory or offensive comments on social media, or really anywhere. Believe it or not, there are so many.
I have a question.
Sure, stop. Go ahead.
What about agents that have a service fee besides the commission? And they say
a transaction
you
fee.
have to pay this fee as well.
So that is a gray area. Thank you for that question. That's actually a great question. If you feel that it's in the best interest of your client, that's where it's going to be determined. If you are listing the property and you immediately state that to your client at the time of listing, and there's no other strings attached, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that. However, if you throw it in at the last minute without having disclosed it at the time of listing, that could become an issue. You're going to have to decide on your business plan how that works. But great question. I don't know that it would necessarily be an immediate COE violation. I don't believe it would be. It's not collecting extra commission. You're actually collecting for a fee. A lot of people do it for their transaction coordinator, things like that, as long as you're disclosing it and stating it from the start. Does that answer?
It has to be in your listing agreement or your buyer's agreement.
It should be. It should be.
Yeah, because if you do have it, the title companies usually ask you for a copy of it to make sure it's in there. It has to be disclosed.
It should be. It has to be. Technically, you can negotiate anything until the day of closing. However, should you, for the code of ethics part? Yes. Well,
most title companies, if you don't have it, like if you put it that fee in at the end and it's not in the buyer's or listing agreement, they don't add it to the HUD.
I can tell you that I look at about 100 contracts a day. I have very rarely seen anyone ask for it. So it's interesting that you're saying it. Yeah. But I'm in agreement with you. They should be asking for it, and it should be disclosed on the listing agreement, same as a variable commission. That's another big one, guys. How often, and I hear this almost on a daily basis, oh, I'm trying to save my seller some money and I have a customer that I'm going to sell, so I'm going to reduce my commission. Again, if you have decided to do that, you better decide to do that at the time of listing, and then you have to disclose that it's going to be a variable commission. Because if in your listing agreement you have 6 chickens as your commission, and all of a sudden you have the customer and you decide, I'm going to let my seller only pay me 4 chickens at the time of the sale, but you didn't disclose that in the MLS, and somebody else comes in with an offer at that last minute and they find out at the end that you only got paid the 4 chickens, they're going to say you had an unfair advantage. So if you're going to say 6 chickens from the start, you have to keep that to 6 chickens. Like when we get those calls from an investor that state, hey, because you're the listing agent, I want to work with you, and you can just drop the other side's commission. The moment you do that and you didn't disclose that at the very beginning, you have violated the COE. So if you're going to choose to do that, which I personally don't like that, because my answer, just so you know, to an investor that says that to me is, my agreement with my seller has absolutely nothing to do with your purchase. So your purchase is your purchase and it has nothing to do with it. You decide what you want, what you're willing to pay for this property. I will write an offer. If my seller agrees, they agree. But the commission should never be a part of the play at that point. Everybody follow me on that one, because that's a real important one and a very common one. Okay. Any questions? Feel free to interrupt. But that one, if you're going to be changing your commission, if it happens to be that you're on both sides, you need to disclose that as variable commission from the start. Going back to the posting discriminatory or offensive comments anywhere, it says social media here, but really anywhere. Be careful with his and hers closets. Be careful with, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Great for a family. Be careful with those comments, guys. Those could technically be discriminatory and offensive comments. So you need to be aware of what could be called discriminatory. And you can always Google best words, always keep things factual and you'll be okay. So let's look at duties of clients and customers. That's going to be Articles 1 through 9. There's a lot of standards of practice in the middle of it all. And definitely Google, Realtors Code of Ethics, get the latest one, read through it little by little, come to my class at the end of the month if you want. We'll go through every one of them. We'll go through actual case studies. But that is something that you need to be aware of, the duties to clients. So let's go through the articles real quickly. You have protecting the best interests of the client. That's the biggest one, like I said. People don't understand how easily you can break that and violate that article. Number 2 would be no misrepresentation, exaggeration, or hiding facts about the property at hand. All of a sudden, they fixed the tub that broke, a tub, the shower pan broke and it flooded the downstairs and they redid everything and you choose to not tell anyone. You're going to have more than just misrepresentation there, but that would be a violation of the code of ethics. Realtors should cooperate with each other unless it's not in the client's best interest. This is another one that we see a lot of case studies about, because realtors will receive a call. Hey, is your property available? No, we're under contract. And you find out that they're under contract with their own client, right? So again, if you're, or they'll say, we're about to sign the binding agreement, so we're not accepting any other offers until it is signed, guys. And even after that, you have to accept all offers. If I were to send you an offer and you're already under contract, you still have to present it to your seller. Of course, you can tell your seller you can't sell it to 2 people, but you have to present it to your seller. That's one that I see a lot. Oh, no, we're under contract. We're pending. Are you really? Are all the signatures bound? I still send contracts, even if it's pending. If somebody wants that house, send the contract, because they have to present it to the owner. And if that happens, for instance, if they're under due diligence and your seller knows, hey, I have a possible other offer that could be coming in, they might work a little differently on the due diligence, but you can't tell somebody not to send you an offer. That's actually a violation to Article 3. 4 and 5, disclosing any personal interest in the property. How often do you see agents say, oh, no, I'm not the owner, because they put it in an LLC or a corporation or their wife or their child's name? They have to disclose any personal interest in a property. I don't care if it's in an LLC's name. I don't care if it's in their spouse's name. If they own even 1%, they have to disclose that as a realtor. No recommending services for a kickback or collecting money under the table. I received an email the other day saying, hey, what kind of form do I need so that the lender can give me a referral fee? Can a lender give you a referral fee, guys? No, absolutely not. Nobody can. So be very careful with that. That's a huge violation, and it's another common one. Roofers can't give you kickbacks or referral fees. Nobody can give you a referral fee. Now, for instance, like America's Preferred Home Warranty, they pay the brokers and the brokers pay you. If you can work out an agreement like that, that's a different story. They're paying your broker's paying you, but it can't be related to a financial transaction. So like a warranty has nothing to do with the actual financing. You definitely cannot get.
Question.
Uh-huh.
Question. What about a former client saying, hey, I've got someone who wants to buy a house. How about giving me $500 and I'll give you this name?
I hope no one's doing that, because that would be a huge violation unless that former client happens to also hold a Georgia or any real estate license anywhere in the country where you can send them a referral. Never. Thank you. That's another good question. Never give anyone anything of value, is what Greg says, to anybody that's not a licensed real estate agent. So yes, be very careful with that. Don't say, here's my inspector because you like this inspector and he's going to pay you back. Don't even give the warranty and say, I want you to use this warranty. You can give them 3 names. I always give them 3 names of warranties, even though America's Preferred Home Warranty does pay you back or give you money, but it's an agreement. It's a marketing agreement, but always make sure you're giving at least 3 names, and never, ever collect a referral fee from a lender or an attorney. That is a definite no-no. That's a RESPA violation. Article 8 would be keeping clients' funds separate from your own. Believe it or not, that one seems like a simple one, right? But I actually see people that have said, oh, sell me the money and then I'll wire it to the office for earnest money, for example. Can't do that, guys. You cannot have any client funds with your money. No, don't ever, ever do that. They have to, keep the money separate at all times. If you're not a property management broker, you cannot hold money for rentals, things like that. You must have it in a trust account. and it must be done through a brokerage. So be very careful with property management. That's another one I see people mess up on the code of ethics there. Article 9, all documents for the transaction should be presented to the buyer and seller in understandable terms. If you have a client that says, I really don't understand this, and you say, oh, just sign it. Of course, it's not your duty or your job to interpret or explain, but your point at that point should be make sure that you talk to an attorney and seek legal help, but also make sure that when you present the information to the buyer and seller that you have presented them the full information. Don't just send them a spreadsheet saying, okay, you have this offer for 500, this one's 450, this one is 420, and this one closes on such and such a date, and the other one closes on such a date. No, you have to make sure you're sending them all the documents and you're giving it to them so that they can look it over and understand it. That is another one. A lot of people just say, just tell me which one sounds good. And then later on, they come back to you and say, well, I didn't know that they were going to have to do inspections for 5 days. You can go there and say, well, this is what due diligence is. You can tell them where in the contract to read about that. If they don't speak the language, make sure they speak to somebody else. Don't do the translating yourself, even if you speak that language. You could be held liable. Then you have duties to the public. Those are Articles 10 through 14. In Articles 10 through 14, no denying services on the basis of discrimination. We would think that's a normal given one, right? But still happens, guys. If you say, oh, I don't want to work with that person because I don't like their religious values, or I don't like that person because I just don't like their customs or whatever. You cannot deny service. No matter what, on the basis of discrimination. I would think that one can be left alone and everybody understands it. Article 11, providing clients with competent service only within a realtor's professional scope. And I know many of you have violated this. I have. We all have. So be very cautious with this one. I do a class called Stay in Your Lane. This is what this is referring to. You are a realtor. Your job is to sell and help them buy houses, lease houses, etc. You are not an inspector. You are not a lender, unless you really are a lender. That's a different story. But you are not to go outside of your professional scope. That's one of the things about staying in your lane. But the biggest violation we see here is commercial real estate. If you have never done a commercial transaction and all of a sudden your buddy calls you and says, I want you to help me find some office space, you would be violating the code of ethics. I don't care if you tell him I have never done any commercial. It still doesn't release you of Article 11. Article 11, when you go into the full article and read it, explains that you must have somebody work with you that is competent in those services. So you would have to engage with another commercial realtor to help you until you become competent enough. Another one with Article 11 that I'm seeing a lot happen is people selling businesses that have no lease associated, no real estate associated, no real property. Guys, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you all to raise your hands. Virtual hands. Do you believe that as a realtor, you have the authority to sell a business, just the business? They don't have a lease. They don't have any real property. Do you have the authority to sell the business? Raise your hands if you believe yes. Virtual hands. I see no virtual hands. Nobody believes it. So who believes you do not? I see one hand. So everybody else just abstains?
I see it in like commercial agents are doing a lot of business transactions.
So here's the thing, guys. Everybody can do business brokering. There is no license required for business brokering. Jacqueline, do you have a question, or were you just raising your hand stating you agree?
Oh, I was just raising my hand saying I agree.
Okay. Yeah, you do not need a license to sell a business. but it does not fall under real estate. If there is no real estate property, no real property, no leasehold, no freehold, then it would not be part of real estate. So with that being said, my concern with you guys doing real estate would be the fact that you don't have, it doesn't fall under the hospice of GREC. Anybody can sell a business. But at the same time, where it becomes a violation is if you've never sold a business and you don't know how to business broker, then you could be in violation of Article 11. There are real professional business brokers. Are you going to make any money? No, because it's not, you can't be collecting a commission per se. So if I was approached to sell a business, I would refer them to a business broker. Do I know how to sell a business? I've sold my own business. Most of you probably have, but it doesn't make you a professional business broker. And as a realtor, you do have to provide clients with competent services only within a realtor's professional scope, which means not a business broker unless you are officially a business broker. So be cautious if somebody asks you to do a commercial deal. Or how about another one would be, they say, hey, can you sell me a house in Macon, but you've never even been in Macon? Again, that's outside of your area of competence. Or if they tell you, can you sell me a house in Florida? My husband's licensed in Florida. He could sell a house there, but unless it's an area that we know, we would most likely refer it. And even recently, we were referred a client in Miami, which we do know, probably better than Georgia, but we still referred it out because we're not there. So you have to take all those articles, make sure that you're following them based on that competence. Natalie, you said you did a training as far as business brokering. Is that what you were referring to? Natalie, unmute yourself if you can.
Yes. So at the time I was with Metro Brokers and they were affiliated with the commercial side for Coldwell Banker.
Right.
And so they made us, if we wanted to get into the business brokering side, we had to take a training course with Coldwell on how to do the commercial, but more focusing on the sale of a business brokerage, like a person wanting to sell a business.
But did it involve leaseholds and freeholds?
No, it didn't involve leasehold or freeholds. It was just showing you how to sell a dry cleaners or a Metro PCS or something like that.
Very interesting, but it doesn't fall under real estate law.
No, unless the building where the business is located needed a new lease.
Right.
Or
if you have a leasehold or a freehold.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where you see a lot of people saying, well, I'm just going to sell a business. Unless there's a lease associated with it, it doesn't fall into that real estate commission. But yes, you do have some training in business brokering. So you could technically, but it would be outside of the real estate realm because it's not a real estate. It's not real property. So that is, thank you for sharing that. Also, no false or misleading advertising. We see that a lot in social media where people will advertise somebody else's listing and make it appear as if it's theirs. So you have to be cautious with that. We had a client send us a listing yesterday. I'm not going to say from where, but it was one of those companies that basically hijacks your listing, appears like it was their listing, and it's a great investment property. Guess what? It was a condo with rental restrictions. So our client who wants to be able to rent it out was like, this is great. I'm like, no, it's not. But the advertising was very false, very misleading. So that is one that you have to be very cautious with as well. When you are advertising, make sure you know your correct advertising and marketing laws, and make sure that and rules, and make sure that you know what needs to be included. Because if you just post the house Unless you're posting like the FMLS or GMLS link, you could be accused of false or misleading advertisement. Don't break the law. That's a given, you would think, right? So again, know the law. Most people don't even know what's in the GSACCA laws. Get to know the laws before you say that's an easy one, because you could be breaking the law based on showing a property to a customer that you have not become a client with, and you're giving them advice. You've broken the law. So be careful, because this one is a very long, a big spread out spectrum that you could be accused of a code of ethics violation or undisclosed dual agency. If that person thinks that you're representing them, even though in your mind they're just a customer, it could become undisclosed dual agency. So be very cautious when you're saying, I don't break the law. Cooperate with the Realtors Board's investigative proceedings if charged with a violation. I've shared many times that the investigators are about 29 months behind with Greg. And so 29 months from now, you could possibly get a call from Greg or from your association and say, you're being investigated. And you say, I'm not going to even talk to you. That would actually be a violation of the code of ethics. You have to cooperate with the board however they want you to. If they are asking you for documentation, you have to give them that documentation. If you're charged with a violation, you have to proceed with that investigation, whether you agree with it or not. Articles 15 and 17 are your duties to realtors. This is probably one of the most spoken of ones. No false or misleading statements about other realtors. How often do you hear that realtors are real? Careful. If you are saying anything, unless you know 100% that it's a fact, you have violated Article 15, possibly even gone into slander, libel, or defamation of character. And that would be a whole other story. So be very cautious when somebody calls you and says, I really don't like my realtor. They didn't do the right job. They're not doing a good job. They overpriced my home. Oh yeah, I know about that realtor. That right there would be a false or misleading statement. Or if they approached you at a party, how do I terminate my contract? And that's actually going to go into Article 16 in a moment, but be careful what you say about another realtor. Your best bet is to never say anything at all about another realtor, unless you're going to say, oh, I love working with her, or I love, if somebody asked me about Natalie or Jacqueline or any of you guys on here that I've met and worked with, oh, she is an awesome agent. Even if I was sad that I didn't get the listing, if I went against Natalie in a listing and Natalie got it, and they said, well, I chose Natalie, I would say, oh my gosh, I hope you have a great time. I know you're going to be well represented, right? Or same with any of you guys. Even if you don't believe it, I do believe it, by the way, but even if I didn't believe it, I would make sure to always make it a positive statement. Hold yourselves at a higher level. So Article 16 is probably the one that I see most violations on. Don't solicit clients that have already signed an exclusive listing agreement with another realtor. I am constantly hearing, but they called me. The client called me. Who here, if you want to raise your hand, I know you guys are all being really quiet today. Raise your hands or unmute yourselves. Who here believes that if you get a call from a seller that says, look, I'm about to fire my agent, can we talk about you listing it? Do you think you can talk to them?
Yes.
No, absolutely not. Sada, if you get that call, you say, somebody else was going to say something? No? Okay. You cannot speak to them other than to the fact that say, I would advise you to speak to your agent, but I'm going to fire her. I would advise you to speak to your agent. I would then find out who they're listed with. And if they were listed, for example, with Shauna, I would call Shauna and say, Shauna, I just got a call from your seller. They're telling me they're going to fire you. And I just wanted you to be aware of that. That is what you would have to do in order to not break or violate the code of ethics. You cannot speak to them or solicit them. Now, we're not going to go deep into this today. We will in the class, but you could call that agent. If that person called me and said, hey, you know, I'm about to fire Shauna. I don't like Shauna. She's not doing her work. She's more interested in looking pretty, you know? So I would be, first of all, I would say, you really need to speak to Shauna. Then I could call Shauna and say, hey, Shauna, when's your listing expire? And Shauna, what would you have to tell me? Oh, you're muted. And you're driving, so I don't know if you can answer or not.
They're asking me, when does it expire?
Yes, me as another agent calls you, tells you your seller just called me, told me they're going to fire you. By the way, when does your listing expire? What would your answer be?
I'll probably just tell them when it expires.
You would have to tell them
Yeah.
when it expires. As long as she told me when it expires, that call is done. I could put it on my calendar and I could say, I'm going to call that listing the day after that day it expires. Or I could even say, Shauna, she's obviously not happy with you. How about we work out some way to give you a referral? And I'm going to try to take over that listing. You know, try to make it a positive. But now if Shauna said, nope, I'm not telling you that. That's none of your business. Guess what the code of ethics says you can do at that point? At that point, I can call the seller myself. I can find the phone number and call the seller myself and say, by the way, Mr. Mrs. Seller, when is your listing over? They could tell me now. I can't solicit much further than that, but I can find out from them when it expires. And if they start talking to me at that point, I can guardedly answer some questions. But you can't just say, let me go ahead and have you sign a listing agreement for the day it expires. That would be a major violation. So be very careful because this is probably the one that we see the most violations with. Does that make sense, guys? I want to make sure you guys understand that one. Contractual disputes will be mediated or arbitrated by the Realtor Board. So Article 17 is really talking about the process of what will happen if a code of ethics violation is to take place. So arbitration is not fun, guys. It'll first start with a mediation. They're going to try to come up with some sort of agreement. This is usually procuring cause issues. Somebody helicoptered your client. Basically, what that would mean is all of a sudden they let a contract expire. They went in there and jumped in and grabbed your client when they were originally the listing agent, for example, or something like that. That would be a true violation. That would be something that would have to go to mediation. They would say, hey, can we come up with an agreement here? How about you get 50% of that commission? You get 50%. If you agree, it's done. If you say, oh, no, I know I'm in the right, then you could take it to arbitration, which is almost basically court, and it would be arbitrated by the Board of Realtors. So that is something that's really the processes, the examples, things like that are talked about there. But if you follow the code of ethics, whether you're a realtor or a real estate agent, it's going to help you gain trust and reputation. Make this your business plan. Make this your mode of business. Make this your professional standards. If I know that I am following these code of ethics, next time that Sada or Natalie has a listing that I'm bringing the buyer in, guess what? The transaction is going to go much smoother, right? Or if there are multiple offers and Natalie says, oh, I love working with Deborah. That's awesome. And she would encourage her seller, I know Deborah is very professional. She would not bring a client here that's going to just all of a sudden, not be qualified. If she's telling me they're qualified, I believe her. It's going to bring a level of professionalism to your business that's going to make other realtors want to work with you. If you have the attitude of, and we're going to be, I'm in the process of getting the negotiation class started. For those of you that have asked me, I'm getting myself certified first to do it. But in that, we talk about win-win versus win-lose and the types of negotiators there are out there. When you get into a situation where you have a competitive negotiator that only wants what they want and will not come down, that person's going to gain a reputation that is going to be like, oh, I definitely don't want to bring in a deal to that person. Whereas if I'm working with somebody like Jacqueline, all of a sudden I know I've worked with Jacqueline before. She's going to see what's in the best interest to make it a win-win for both the seller and the buyer. I'm going to be more inclined to want to work with her, right? So we want to gain a source of reputation, credibility, professionalism that other agents will want to work with us, and know that we won't ever be in a situation where the COE is violated, where the code of ethics becomes something that you're going to get into a position of mediation or arbitration. Again, this is a very quick overview of the class of the code of ethics. But at the end of this month, we are having the full 3-hour CE. Additionally, I didn't put the slide in here, but I want you guys to be aware that on the 15th, which is next week, we do have an agent appreciation event at the Duluth office. No recruiting. We're just going to have fun. It's going to be tacos, a taco truck, and things like that. If you're interested, please email me and I'll get you signed up. I'd love for you guys to attend on that day and the next day. If you go to max1training.com, we will also have a photographer that's doing 25-minute sessions with edited photographs, whether it's for you or for your team, or, if you have new headshots that you need. He's going to have his studio set up at both offices at Alpharetta on the 16th and Duluth on the 15th. If you guys need some photos for your team or for yourselves, go to max1training.com and you'll see Duluth mini sessions and Alpharetta mini sessions. And we'd love to have you guys participate with that as well. Other than that, let's open it up to questions. Anything, any aha moments, any surprising moments, anything at all that you guys want to talk about? Nothing?
I have a question.
Sure.
So if, let's just say, someone says something inappropriately about you, like another real estate agent, and you find out about it, and you have proof of that, how would you handle that?
Great question. And I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot to bring that up. The biggest issue with the code of ethics is that nobody reports them. So I would first find out that whether that person's a realtor or if they're a real estate agent. If they're a member of NAR, then I would send it to the Board of Realtors and put a code of ethics violation. So if you put that in, then the process will get started. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but has anyone had or want to share having gone through a code of ethics hearing? No one has? Okay. Well,
No.
okay. Well, that's good. But yeah, I mean, the reality is you can be on the defensive end or offensive end, meaning that you want to make sure that we are keeping the standard. Like I said at the very beginning, some of you came in late. Only 2% nationally of customers and clients believe realtors are honest and ethical. Only 2%. That is so sad to me. So the way we can change that is if somebody said something and you have some way of proving it, I would put in a violation. However, when you put in the violation, you have to make sure you're going to that code of ethics, seeing what code of ethics standard of practice they violated, and you'll put that in.
So I have a question. Is there any numbers, because that was directed at real estate agents, not realtors. So is there any other surveys that, only surveyed as far as realtors and how happy clients were with them? It said sales agents.
Yeah, but it was
agents.
It was all encompassed. It wasn't realtors. And so I have not found one. I'm sure I can. I'll probably find it for the class, but that one was encompassing all Association of Realtors and real estate agents. So because most of the public doesn't really understand. And that's another thing I would encourage you guys to do is make sure you are advertising the difference between a realtor and a real estate agent. Because if you're advertising that difference, they'll understand that. So if you're not advertising it, they're not going to know the difference, kind of like what Steve was just mentioning, because they'll just say, oh, you're part of that 2%. So yeah, you definitely want to know the difference, but I'll try to find some resource for that. As of right now, the only one I could find was All Encompass, because the public doesn't know the difference, unfortunately. Any other questions, comments about this or anything in general, or questions about coming next week to have some tacos with us in Duluth? All right. Well, other than that, always go to max1training.com, and that's all spelled out, MAXONE. And that has the information for the photos, as well as I will upload this compliance chat and other classes as well. Otherwise, have a great and wonderful day, guys.
Thank you.